Oh, sorry, didn't see you there. I've been kind of busy playing on my Steam Deck, which, if you haven't seen one of these, it's the new portable handheld gaming PC from Valve. In the previous episode, we installed Reaper on this and got some audio production going, but it was the most basic of basic things. And now we're going to go all the way. We're going to install Windows on it, which is a big thing. We're also going to use this dock, which I got in more detail with a stand so we can actually see what's going on, and a foldable Bluetooth keyboard so we can actually do stuff without having to pull up the open screen thing, a 256GB SD card on which to install Windows so we can dual boot, and a mouse so we can get around Reaper properly, and even an extra screen. So we're going to be running 2 screens on this thing and using it as a full production computer. Why? Because we're crazy, that's why. Stay tuned. Now, this may seem a little bit insane. Why would you use a handheld with a tiny screen with all this extra stuff we're going to add on to it? Why not just buy a full-size laptop? Well, nobody's made of money. And it depends what you want from what you have and what you can afford. I really love the idea of portable gaming. The whole handheld thing, especially with PC games like I was just playing The Witcher 3. These things do a really good job with emulation as well without having to do any hacking or jailbreaking, which always kind of scares me with stuff like the Nintendo Switch. But at the same time, I more often than not want some sort of production computer as well. And a full production computer can cost a fair amount of money. One of these can cost a decent amount of money. If you want them both, arguably you have to buy both, and that's more money than a lot of people can bear. Which means 9 times out of 10 they're going to go without something like the handheld. Because as nice as they are, it's a bit of a luxury. So why don't we think about this backwards and base our entire system around the handheld, especially with the dual boot Windows thing? Because if we can run Windows on this for the production with all the VST plugins, all that kind of stuff, have the extra screen, the mouse and the keyboard and the interface and everything all plugged in, use it as a real working from home computing solution, and then when we want to go out on the go and do gaming, just unplug it all, reboot into SteamOS, go! And we've paid for it all once. That's what I'm thinking about today, because this cost me £450, which is a lot of money. Plus everything that I got here, we're talking maybe £550 by the time we've added everything in. With the extra screen, that's another £100, that's maybe £650. This doesn't have the most powerful CPU on the market, but for £650, for everything including the portable handheld itself and a workable PC, I mean, the MacBook, the M2 MacBook, is twice as much money, if not more. Yes, it's more powerful, but that's getting into the territory of, in a lot of countries, that's like 3 months to 6 months' wages. That the MacBook is just not even feasible. This is still a lot of money, but is getting down into the almost doable thing for a lot of people. And like I say, it's unconventional, but sometimes unconventional breeds creativity and means that we get some things we would never have otherwise seen. So, let's spin the camera around and start getting into the nitty-gritty. Let's install Windows on here, then start getting all the plugins and all the hardware together. It's Steam Deck time again, and as you can see on the screen here, this is still regular old SteamOS. Difference is, I now have a 256GB card with Windows to Go installed, which is Windows 10 installed in such a way that we can just boot it. I've got a USB stick with some Windows drivers. I've got a mouse and keyboard, which are currently just plugged in to charge them. Those aren't doing anything. Those are Bluetooth, but I'm just using this like a charge port right now. I've got this hub, which is plugged into the AC, which is plugged into the top of the Steam Deck on its only port, which is annoying, but that's how it is. So the dock is pretty much mandatory because you've got to find a way of plugging in all your extra stuff. And so this dock has power and has all the other things. So the first thing we're going to do is go to the power here and turn this off. Complete shutdown. That's going to turn everything off. Then we're going to get this SD card into the bottom of the Steam Deck. And we're going to pull a couple of clever tricks. I'm going to unplug this keyboard and mouse because they were, like I said, just charging. So they are going to be made use of in a few minutes. Okay, I believe that it's off. Let's get this SD card in here. And I have to hold down volume down whilst turning it on. That's some sort of emergency mode, safe mode kind of thingy. There we go. So I can now choose SD card, yes please. And that is now loading sideways, which I kind of expected, to be honest. Because as it turns out, the screen on these things is actually sideways. And then you have to rotate it in the graphics drivers. So let's get this loaded up. We can see what I think is the little Windows spinny thing there, which is a good first sign. There it is, as I suspected, sideways screen. Starting services. This is going to be a little tricky. Whilst this is loading up, I may as well tell you about this little keyboard that I got, which is a foldable keyboard. It cost me £22, so what, $25, something like that. And it folds up nice and neat and will go in my bag as this tiny little thing. If you're going to be doing audio production on the go with one of these things, I would highly recommend having some kind of keyboard and not clogging up a USB port by using a Bluetooth one. It's going to make my life that little bit easier. The Bluetooth mouse that I got was, I think it was £6, so like $7 or $8. It actually has a USB thing in there, but I don't want to use that if I can help it. Again, keeping ports clear for something that actually needs it, where I could just turn this on Bluetooth style and find out how that connects very soon. Again, that's the kind of thing for music production, rely on a traditional mouse so much it drives me insane when I don't have one. Oh, it's restarted itself into SteamOS again. Great! Okay, that'll have been a necessary restart, so we'll need to do another restart with the minus button held down. Urgh! Looks like I'm going to have to hold down the minus key every time I want to boot into Windows. It might even be that I have to do it from a full shutdown because that didn't seem to take any effect at all. Ah! There we go. SDMMC card. Hopefully it boots up faster this time. I did pay the extra as well, by the way, for the SanDisk Extreme Pro card, I think it was. Or was it just the Extreme? Oh, it was the regular Extreme because it was faster than the Ultra, and with an operating system, faster is better. So, you know, I didn't want to spend stupid amounts of money on this with the Extreme Pro now I think about it, because I didn't know if I'd be doing this a lot. This is very much still an experimental phase. Just a moment. The touchscreen works, that's a good start. Sure, the keyboard's fine, whatever. Let's just say I don't have internet. With limited setup. It's kind of ideal actually, because when you plug into internet with a Windows install, it does start to do all sorts of horrible things. Let's call it derp. Super memorable password of nothing. Whatever. If I end up keeping this, I'll run the Windows 10 debloat script later on, which removes a lot of the spyware and all that kind of crap. I mean, this would make sense as the world's most oversized, ridiculous palm-top PC. Absolutely not designed to be used in a portrait orientation, though. Almost there. Almost. Alright, so if I want to go to settings, system, display, landscape. Yay, keep changes. Thank goodness for that. Alright, we have a desktop. So let's plug in this USB stick, which has our drivers on it. So let's just open the folder. And, oh yeah, enter doesn't work on the keyboard just yet, genius. Ugh. Extract all. Boy, this is a pain. This is why I want to get Bluetooth installed as soon as possible. But what I'm going to do is install the APU drivers, which is the CPU, graphics card, all that kind of stuff. Then install the Bluetooth drivers, then get the mouse and keyboard set up on Bluetooth, and then I can install the rest of the drivers using said peripherals, which will make my life way easier. Then we're really just off to the races. Then we can have the second screen running, we can do all the other good stuff. Most of the reason this is slow is because this USB stick that I plugged in is slow. It's not the Steam Deck's fault, really. AMD software for this specific thing, yes please. Because it's an AMD APU, which means CPU with extra stuff. Custom GPU, install. Probably going to get a little black screen at some point while the drivers have a bit of a blah, 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 which is what they do. That's the noise that it makes when it installs new graphics drivers. Oh, here we go. Would you like to install? Yes. Always install. Do the thing. Done. Finish. Right. Oh, helps when you compress things properly, but RT Blue R filter driver, that's the one that I want. Aha, a Bluetooth. Add a Bluetooth device. So if I turn on this mouse, I think that just connected the mouse. And let's turn on the keyboard and see if that connects too. Add Bluetooth. What is BT 5.1 mouse connected. Done. That's great. And Bluetooth keyboard. Oh god. 3866 0090. Enter. Done. So in summary, this does take a while to set up all this kind of stuff, but that's kind of the price you pay for not doing the officially sanctioned thing. And honestly, if you've ever installed Windows on a computer and had to install all your custom drivers anyway, you'll know how this feels. That sounded like sounds. There we go. Got sounds coming out of it. Wi-Fi ports there. Now we're cooking on gas. Now I can unplug that. And now we can get some real pièce de résistance going. This is where I bring in this monster, which has been sat in a barn, but this is an extra screen that cost about an extra £100. And I'm going to need something to prop this up with because, like the monumental idiot that I am, I don't have the stand for it. I managed to leave it in a barn where we've been making the stone guitar cabinet. But, no matter. This dock, the one that I bought, specifically has... it specifically has an HDMI port on it. Now, I don't know whether that's going to create its own graphics device or whether that's going to piggyback off the AMD APU. We shall see. But if I power this off this USB hub and then plug this into the HDMI port, let's see what we get. That was quick enough. And how about that? We have currently an expanded version of the desktop right there, which is neither use nor ornament. Does that cause it? No, it's not caused it to hang. It's just the mouse that's not responding right now. Bluetooth itself is fine. This could be a consequence of buying a cheap mouse. Oh, there we go. It's fine now. So if we go to display settings and change these so that we extend them, we now have 2 displays. So as far as audio production goes, we've got a double screen, everybody. It's kind of hard to see back there, but if I move that in screen, I could have a full 1080, either a capture card attached to this, or I could have, you know, anything plugged in. So that proves this is all running off one single power supply, by the way, because this extra screen is powered by USB from the hub, and it's got an HDMI to mini HDMI connector on here. There are a lot of screens now you can get that will just do HDMI over the USB-C, so it's a single cable solution. This isn't one of those, which made it cheap, but the dock supports it, so it's working so far. Now, I'm going to cut the camera. I'm going to install Chrome, Reaper, all that good stuff, and the iLock software and a load of plugins, and we'll see how far we get with that. Alright, it's the next morning and I'm almost done installing plugins. As you can see, I've also put the EVO 16 in here. The dock here is absolutely maxed out now because I'm using the Ethernet line. I'm using the USB-C for the EVO. You can use USB-A as well. The iLock is plugged in. The power is powering the screen here off USB. HDMI is doing the screen thing. So this thing is absolutely, the dock at least, is at its limit. I could get a bigger dock, but then we're talking more money. But this thing is absolutely, as I would say, putting in a shift. Taken quite a while to download all the stuff. It seems like the Wi-Fi on the Steam Deck isn't the fastest, so I went hardwire to try and get all this done in time to make this video. Also, running off a SD card feels a lot like running off an old traditional spinning hard drive because the read speeds are not super fast. So let's just paste these in here. So get the extraction going. I'm going to leave a couple of plugins missing off this project just because I don't want to take all day installing it, but the general idea should be, is this going to hang doing a full mix? Alright, and the results are in! This is the Scar album that I produced recently with the 100+ tracks I think we're getting up to 123 live tracks. And with all the plugins, all the processing, it plays back, and I tested it on here. There's no stuttering, sounds fine, and it can just about keep up. The poor CPU on this thing is hitting 80+%. This is really on the edge, but it's doing it. It's using the Evo 16. It's set to 24 in, 24 out. And this is with all this processing on. It's still handling this absolutely with no problems. That's at 512 sample latency, but if I was running a less heavy project, I'm sure the latency would be comparable to any other PC. See, what you've got to keep in mind is this just is a PC in a box. It's a quad-core processor. It's kind of the equivalent of a couple of generations old's kind of latest and greatest, even though now it's kind of compacted down and not using a huge amount of CPU. Relatively speaking, it can use 15 watts of power, I think it is. But with a dock, this is keeping up. And with the extra screen, the massive interface, this is now like a whole massive production system. Yes, this screen is still tiny, and I've set all the DPI scaling to 100%, because by default it blows everything up so that everything looks more friendly and easy to read, but then you get less stuff on screen, and as an audio production kind of guy, I would much rather see more things rather than bigger, friendlier things, but you can set that in the settings however you like. And so I can hit save and quit on this, restart back into SteamOS, take it off this dock, and go play. And that's what's really cool about this. And I worked out all in, I think I spent less than £600 on this whole setup, excluding the interface. The interface is what it is, depending on what you're doing. That's a whole separate, because like, let's say you've got a Digico live mixing desk with a USB-C to plug it in as an interface. You're not going to consider that part of the cost of the production computer. The MacBook that I got cost nearly 3 times that. It's impressive, but it's not 3 times more powerful. A full-fledged desktop PC, like what's behind me, costs significantly more. And yes, it will handle more plugins, lower latency, all that kind of stuff. But we're getting to the questions of what do you really need? There are laptops that cost this kind of cost where you get to a certain point and most of the money is going into the graphics card, the GPU, which we don't need. For audio production, we just don't. So this is a much more capable system than I was giving it credit for. I mean, yes, the thing was a £450 overblown Nintendo Switch, but this might change some people's minds in terms of what you can use this for beyond it just playing a couple of games. This could perceivably be a full home computer system for you. You could have it set so it doesn't use the little screen at home and only uses an external display. You could have it set any way you like so that then when you go and play with it, you have the gaming display, and when you don't, it's there for you and you've not had to buy 2 whole computers. I'll keep coming back to that point. If you've got the money to buy something like a MacBook or a desktop PC, great. If you want to have everything in one system, yes, it's a little kind of messy with this dock and all the extra wires as well, but that's no different from a 2013 Mac Pro. You remember the trash can Macs? Those things were exactly a similar kind of setup where you'd have all these cables hanging out the back. So yeah, if I wanted to take this and game, all I would do is close everything, save yes or no, and then just shut it down. That'll take a few seconds, because running off the SD card, it's not super fast, but running the games off the inbuilt SSD, or if you really wanted to, you could install Windows on the SSD and have that way faster than this is in terms of access times. The CPU power used wouldn't be any different, but now that's off, I go boot and turn it back on in SteamOS, and I can go off and game. The battery on this is full because it's been charged. I can go and play. Maybe I've got a long commute, so I could go and play and do that on the subway, on the way in, on the way out of work, get home, click this in, restart into Windows, carry on my audio production journey. Why not produce in Linux, Adam? Well, because a lot of these plugins are Windows and Mac OS only, and running them in emulation layers like Wine can get difficult because of things like the iLock software, which has its own kind of set of requirements. But being able to do all of this in one go, and there we go, there's SteamOS, and I can be playing on the subway or wherever it is that I am. This has now become a whole comprehensive system. I was thinking of selling this, as I said in the first part. Now less so, because this is now a lot more capable for me. And so, capable is a big deal. Thank you everybody for watching. I hope you enjoyed this. Thanks to the patrons for making things like this completely possible, because I know it's kind of nuts. And join the Discord, get asking the questions there. And join us over at Produce Like a Pro as well, where we do a lot of stuff with those guys. I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.